Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It's Thursday, October the 1st, 2020. On this episode of the Politicrat, taxes, debates, voting, and maybe a thing or two more. Coming up next. Welcome back. Well, I hope you've recovered from this crazy debate that we had here in the United States on Wednesday, although it feels like it was not. Actually, it was Tuesday. I mean, it feels like it was Wednesday. Maybe it's because I've seen this debate 3 times now, which I think kind of has myself, let alone anybody else, questioning my own mental faculties, because why would you want to sit through that debate at all, let alone 3 times? Well, we are going to have 3 debates here. That's the bottom line between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There will be 3 debates between the two, and it's been such a crazy week. And now that we are into October, happy October 1st, everybody, it's worth just turning the page on what was a really crazy month, as this whole calendar year has been a crazy month, hasn't it? But as far as this new month is concerned, there will still be 2 more presidential debates. And then there will be, or before those 2 come, there will be 1 vice presidential debate. That's coming up next Wednesday. In 6 days, we're going to have the vice presidential debate, Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence. I will give Pence a title. I will not give Donald Trump one, because he is not worthy of the office that he is sitting in, the office he stole. So there are lots of titles to give Donald Trump, and the one that's given to him now that begins with the word P is not the one I would give him, although there are lots of other P words that I could associate with Donald Trump, and one of them is not the word he used in the Access Hollywood tape. Donald Trump is an absolute disgrace to this country and to this planet. I don't think that we need to spell that out anymore, because it's so obvious. For those of us who lived in New York way back when, for those people still living in New York, the New Yorkers who had lived with this menace for decades, and now he has fled to Florida in exile, because soon he will be having to come back to New York, because Attorney General Tish James is working feverishly, as is the Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance, to ensure that he and his pox-ridden family of criminals, the crime family of Trumps, will be heading back to New York at some point in the next few months. But until then, hold on to your hats. We're going to have more craziness, unfortunately. We're going to have more of the chaos and destruction that is Donald Trump's middle name. We've seen this in the lies over and over and over again. You will be hearing during this episode a couple of excerpts from Daniel Dale, who is the fact checker at CNN, and what he was saying on debate night, because there was so much audio that, the episode could have been much, much longer, and sometimes the episodes I do here run a little long, but I just want to tell you that you will be hearing some of that audio coming up during this episode. So we've got 2 more presidential debates to come. We've got 1 vice presidential debate to come. And the Commission on Presidential Debates yesterday released a statement saying that they are going to be changing the rules for the remaining debates. And The Commission on Presidential Debates has really been behind the times for years now, and I think that they have a lot of egg on their face. They knew, and they had 4 years to know, that Donald Trump would be as he was on Tuesday night. I do think it's very clear that anybody with eyes to see, including Chris Wallace, who claims that he just never thought that the debate would go the way it did, had to have known all the things that Donald Trump has said over 50 years, let alone the last 4, would be material enough to know that this debate with Joe Biden would not go as scripted in terms of how a viewer would expect the debate to unfold. Never mind Donald Trump's performances from 2016 against Hillary Clinton. I mean, even though those were pretty mild compared to what we saw on Tuesday, the mere fact that, and Al Gore did this too, just for those of you who are waiting to say that, I will say it for you. Al Gore did the same thing to George W. Bush when he walked over to George W. Bush, tried to close the space between them as an act of intimidation. And George Bush just kind of shrugged it off and gave him a nod. And the timing of that nod and the timing of how he responded to Gore had everybody in the audience laughing. There's lots of video on YouTube with it. Now, what Donald Trump did 4 years ago, as Hillary Clinton was talking directly to an audience member, was skulk behind her, about 7 or 8 feet away, 7 feet from her, kind of within 6 or 7 feet, and he's hovering over her. Now, that's a different kind of story. It's still in the ballpark of kind of gamesmanship, but it's a bit more than that because it's predatory, which fits Donald Trump's whole DNA. These kinds of things do happen in these newer, more recent debates. But I do think that Donald Trump should not be allowed to ever have done that. And there are things that Joe Biden can do that Hillary Clinton can't in the sexist and patriarchal world that we're in, and a sexist society that we're in, a misogynist society that we're in, and a world of misogyny and sexism that we're in. Hillary Clinton could not have told Donald Trump on Tuesday night, had she been the one debating him, "Will you just shut up, man?" That would not have gone over well for some people, which is a shame, because that highlights the ingrained, baked-in sexism of the society. And you know that Hillary Clinton wanted to say that to him, not only 4 years ago, but also 2 days ago, when she probably would have been shouting that at her television set. But just to wrap up the neat or untidy bow of Tuesday night, I do want to re-emphasize something that Abby Phillip said. And a few others have said, but Abby Phillip in particular of CNN, that this was a messy debate because Donald Trump messed it up and destroyed it, not because Joe Biden did. Sure, Joe Biden interrupted about 4 or 5 times. In fact, he was the first person to interrupt in the debate, which I thought was interesting. Nobody's really picked that up. He was the one who made the first interruption. I've seen the thing 3 times now, so I think I would know. But be that as it may, the fact of the matter is Donald Trump interrupted at least 50 different times during that debate. It was an hour and a half. So interrupted and crossed. It was just ridiculous. But to put a neat or untidy bow on this thing, the Commission for Presidential Debates is really in a difficult position, because although they are exploring rule changes and they're going to change the rules, Donald Trump doesn't abide by rules. You should know that by now. And I think that shutting off microphones is a good idea. But he will still be heard in the room And even if you shut off the microphones, there will still be people, including Joe Biden, who will still be able to hear him. So then how do you deal with that issue? Because Donald Trump is going to do this again. And he's an unruly, disrespectful twerp who does not care about rules or about order or about any kind of decency, because he has none of those. So I think that the Commission on Presidential Debates, or the Commission for Presidential Debates, I think they now have to put in some kind of system whereby they will make a statement about Donald Trump's conduct, and they should warn both candidates about this. If either candidate does something, there will be a statement and there will be some kind of, I would say, they can't deduct points because there's not a points thing, but there should be some kind of rebuke of him. Now, that may not make a difference to him because he doesn't care about that. But the point is that there should be some real clamping down here. And it's not that you're clamping down speech. You're clamping down the indecency. And you're trying to curb it. Not like the way Donald Trump was doing, by stifling the First Amendment. That's what he was doing. Not allowing you to hear what Joe Biden had to say, at least on a number of occasions, and not allowing the moderator to say what he wanted to say to Donald Trump or to Joe Biden. So that's something that the Commission for Presidential Debates really has to look at here, as far as I'm concerned. And it was one person who was doing the bulk of the interrupting. It was Donald Trump. And I can tell you now that it is the Republicans and Trump officials in his inner circle who are publicly and privately expressing dismay. Now, there are Republicans who are openly saying it was abysmal, but that's because the media is asking them what they thought of the debate. What the media should be asking these Republican politicians who are up for re-election is, what do you think of Donald Trump's performance at the debate? And I guarantee you they would not be so forthcoming. I guarantee you these Republicans wouldn't. But everybody knows that privately, people in the Trump campaign are very disappointed and very concerned about Donald Trump's performance. And not only that, it has certainly affected the way some of his supporters, the ones who aren't the rabid yahoos, because look, there are Trump supporters who are very rich. Most of the people who are going to vote for him in his camp are rich people. And I'm going to get to that with the taxes in just a few minutes. But that is really his base, the rich and these racist, uneducated, or maybe well-educated people who are racist. Racist people and rich people are really are the bulk of those who are going to be voting for Donald Trump. Yes, you'll get some black men and women, very few black women, but you'll probably get, I think he'll probably get between 7 and 15, which I think is a really high number, % of black men voting for him. And it's a shame that that is happening, but that's a testament to, I don't know what that's a testament to. It's probably an indictment more than a testament. But the point is, it's an indictment of the Democratic Party. You've got to have at least 95% of black men voting for you. And Joe Biden and crew have to continue to push that. They have to continue to go after the youth. I know that the strategy now is for them to peel off the white working class that Hillary Clinton lost last time around. And although the white working class usually votes for Democrats, and although the white working class did vote, the majority of them voted for Hillary Clinton, she did not get the most robust turnout amongst the white working class that Democratic candidates usually do. And for that reason, and because of that, was part of the reason she did not win the Electoral College. So Joe Biden's campaign, and I think it's a good idea, has understood that you've got to go through these key Midwest states like Ohio, like Wisconsin, like Michigan. These are key places. And then also go to Pennsylvania. These are the key states in that area where you can pick up white working class votes. And I also think Joe Biden has to continue to invest in the Latino vote, invest in the Latinx vote. I really am still a little worried about that because I don't think he's still... look, the media shows us only what it wants us to see, the corporate news media. But I must say that Joe Biden's campaign has to do a bit more and continue to do more about getting Latinx people to vote. Now, and to vote for him, obviously, but there are lots of organizations who are doing that. Chuck Rocha's organization. Remember, I spoke to Chuck Rocha maybe 2 weeks ago now, if not 3, and we talked about this with his own PAC called Nuestro PAC, Nuestro PAC, Nuestro PAC, and he is doing great work, and his PAC is doing excellent work to get out the Latinx vote. There are so many other organizations, Voto Latino, that is run by Maria Teresa Kumar, and there are so many other organizations as well in the Latinx communities that are really facilitating great voter turnout. But Joe Biden's really trying to solidify and make inroads into the white working class. He went to an event, a couple of events. In fact, he went to several events in the Ohio and Pennsylvania train tour. Went through a bit of Wisconsin too, I think, but it's mostly Ohio, and he went back to Pennsylvania and spoke to union class workers, working class workers, white working class men and women. And that's where he's trying to go here. And I think it's a good idea. I like the Scranton versus Park Avenue thing. I mean, I know that some people will say, well, look at Joe Biden. It's not like he's not well off now, but he didn't grow up that way. Donald Trump did. Donald Trump grew up with by the time he was 8 years old, he had at least $1 million or $2 million. He had something like between $500,000 and $1 million, if not more, dollars to his name. By the time he was 8 years old, around 8 or something. This guy was getting money for fun, unearned. He was born with 2 silver spoons up his what, and one in his mouth. And that's the one that I think his dad took out of his backside. But the point of the matter is that Donald Trump was born into privilege and wealth, and before he turned a teenager, he was a millionaire, at least on paper. By the way, one other thing I want to say about all this, and the debates will be the debates. It's important to say that these debates are not really going to change many people's minds. I told you the other day that most of the people in this country know exactly who they're going to vote for. There will be 1 or 2 who are undecided, and yes, there are undecideds out there. Of course there are. Never is there an election where every single person is completely with their mind made up about presidential candidates or any candidates. But one thing that we do know is that the number of undecideds is roughly 10%, if not less than that, which is a much smaller number than the number 4 years ago. The undecideds were between 17 and 20%. So what you're seeing now in the campaigning, particularly from Joe Biden's side, is this attempt to siphon off groups of white working class voters. That's what you're seeing right now. That's what Biden's strategy is. It's pretty clear. It's pretty transparent. I want him to do more campaigning with the Latinx community. I want him to do more outreach among black men, because it just I just have to be really honest here. Not that I'm not in general, but I just have to be, I think the better word is frank. I used to be blatant here, is that black men, and this is addressed to black men because black women get this and have got this forever. They know. right? They know they are the most reliable voting bloc on the planet. No group of people votes more reliably, more consistently than black women do. They are the go-to, and the reason why, after much pressure, that Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris is because black women were the people who got Joe Biden exactly where he is right now. It was black women. Black men contributed as well in South Carolina. I'm not saying that they didn't. But it's black women who are the group of voters who absolutely are responsible for getting Joe Biden to where he is right now. And any Democratic candidate for that matter. Any Democratic Party. Politician for that matter. In a great many ways, has a huge debt to pay to black women. There's a huge amount that they owe to black women. But what gets me is that there are just, maybe 15%, 10 maybe percent of black men who they want to vote for Donald Trump. And I just don't get it. And if they don't want to vote for Donald Trump, I guess there's going to be a small minority of them who are even entertaining Kanye West. Do you know that Kanye West is on the far right party? Do you know that if you look here in California, you will find his name on the ballot for the American Independent Party? The American Independent Party is a far right-wing, racist political party. George Wallace was on that party. He was a card-carrying member of that party. Kanye West is part of that party on the ballot here in California. I think he's running as vice president to some guy named Rocky, who is on the ballot every time out here in California for everything, right? Every election, you'll see his name. It's just, but these guys get votes, which is what I'm bothered about. I do not like it, but you can't stop third parties from running. But this is not a third party election. This is an election not even between Republicans and Democrats. This is an election between America and Donald Trump. So that's really the real key here. And it's important, so important to understand that.
A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud.
All right, Daniel, how do you rate that statement?
That is false, Wolf. Look, there is just no evidence of significant fraud with any form of mail voting, whether we're talking about cases in which people have to request a ballot or states in which all registered voters or all eligible registered voters are sent ballots without a request. Now, 9 states plus the District of Columbia are sending out these so-called unsolicited ballots during this election. About half of them are doing so because of the pandemic, but about half of them, including Republican-leaning Utah, did so before the pandemic with no significant incidents of fraud. So again, bottom line, with any form of mail-in voting, voter fraud, any kind of election fraud is exceedingly rare, Wolf.
Certainly is. Daniel, Joe Biden, he pushed back at the president's defense of mail-in voting in Republican-run states while slamming it in Democratic-controlled states. Let's listen to that and how the president responded.
Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney. They have no idea what happened.
What do you make of that, Daniel?
Wolf, that is also false. There was no evidence of fraud in Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney's race in New York's 12th district. Now, there were issues in that race. There were a significant number of ballots rejected for reasons like missing or flawed signatures. There was also a legal dispute about the number of rejected ballots. Some ballots were sent out late to voters. But even Maloney's defeated opponent, Siraj Patel, tweeted tonight that he said Trump lied about this. He lied about what happened, and Trump has done so repeatedly. So bottom line, no evidence of fraud in the 12th district primary. And I need to add, Wolf, that literally almost every single thing President Trump said tonight, almost every single example he cited about mail voting was wrong. So he cited a case in which he said a West Virginia mailman was selling ballots. There was no mailman selling ballots. That man was caught altering primary ballot applications, he said as a joke, from Democrat to Republican. He told a story about what happened in one county in North Carolina, but got it wrong. He told the story about something that allegedly happened in Philly today or this week, but he got that wrong. You can look up the local media coverage. He told a story about ballots found discarded in Pennsylvania, but got the number of Trump ballots there wrong. So literally everything the president says on this subject needs to be treated with great skepticism, Wolf.
Excellent work, Daniel. You're going to be back in about 15 minutes with more fact-checking.
Welcome back. That was Daniel Dale of CNN fact-checking a liar named Donald Trump. And such it was, and such as it was, that rather than have Daniel Dale on for about an hour straight, fact-checking every darn lie that Donald Trump told, and he told at least 80 different lies on Tuesday during that frenetic debate that has still given a lot of people a lot of stress. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, said that she hasn't been able to sleep since that debate on Tuesday night. And I suspect that she's not the only one. Anyway, CNN decided to break up the appearances of Daniel Dale into separate increments and in roughly every 10-minute and 15-minute intervals because there was just so much he had to cover. And, of course, you had to get the talking heads in, the pundits in. So that's what Wolf Blitzer and CNN generally, and, they did that on Tuesday night after the debate. So that was just one segment of Daniel Dale fact-checking. Just all the lies. Somebody who lies as much as Donald Trump does. Now, we know that politicians tell lies. Politicians, no matter which political party they belong to, they all do tell lies. Things that aren't true. Things that they know aren't true, or they exaggerate things. It's all part of the whole thing. But someone who lies as much as Donald Trump does doesn't have any respect for you. And Donald Trump, lying as much as he does, has absolute contempt for you. When you think about it, someone who has lied well over 23,000 times in less than 4 years while in the White House has the deepest contempt for you. Someone who would lie to you as much as he does. Anybody who would lie to you 23,000 times or so absolutely hates your guts. We have 33 days of voting left until November the 3rd. 33 voting days. We have just turned the calendar to October 1st. Yeah, this is the month where there's supposed to be that surprise, connected to politics, designed to throw a cat amongst the proverbial pigeons, if you will. Perhaps the October surprise came just a few days ago, this past Sunday, in September, when the New York Times dropped a real well, I was going to say dead cat, which is something that the fellow Brits use in politics. There's a terminology, the dead cat, dropping the dead cat in the middle of everything. To take your eye off of what's going on over there and focus on what's going on right here with this dead cat. Well, look, I do not advocate any kind of violence against any kind of living thing or human being. I'm simply saying that the October surprise is made for these moments, and the New York Times got theirs, I guess, or put theirs on the table, if you will, a few days early. Because as you know by now, the New York Times has printed out, has investigated, and still is doing more stories on Donald Trump not paying taxes, federal income taxes, for 10 out of 15 years and only paying $750 of federal income tax in 2016 and 17. And owing mountainous amounts of debt, somewhere between $420 million and billions of dollars. That was something that Donald Trump wanted to get off the front pages and off the front pages of the minds of people and off the news cycle. And he succeeded with that belligerent, bullying, abusive debate performance. And so now as a result, and also with the declining, once again, surprise, surprise, to denounce white, racist, violent people. And because he's done all of that, the media now is asking and asking and asking, well, wow, he has not called out these white racists. He's declining to condemn them. He's not denouncing them. That's the media's talk right now. And the corporate news media has known for 50 years that Donald Trump has never denounced racists because he is one. In the 1970s, when he refused to rent to black people and wrote the little letter C for colored on the applications of black people to rent in his rental properties, the media knew that. The New York Times wrote stories about it in the 1970s. He was ordered to pay out money in a lawsuit for discriminating against black people, a federal lawsuit. He lost. He had to pay millions of dollars worth of fines. So the idea that the media is some people expressing this shock, it goes back to what David Axelrod said on CNN. I played it on yesterday's episode. I mean, are you surprised? There's no way you could be. Now, look, it's reprehensible, of course, that he's not denouncing these groups. But again, he is one of these people. He's been one for his whole life. And I think the media should leave that to the voters, not only in these next 33 days of voting, but also leave it to the town hall. Let the moderator at the town hall, or even more specifically, have one of these voters who are in that audience at the town hall ask Donald Trump the question, could you please condemn white racists who are violent as well? Can you condemn these hate groups? Condemn these white hate groups. If a voter were to get up in that town hall in a couple of weeks' time, it's about, 16 days from now or something, I don't know exactly. October 12th or something, I don't remember. But anyway, if in that town hall debate somebody, a black person or a white person, but a black person, get up and just ask Donald Trump, can you please condemn white racists? I know XYZ who has been killed, all these people who have been killed by the police, by hate groups. Can you denounce them? Can you condemn them, please? And they might even lie and say, well, it'll make I'll vote for you if you do. No. No, that's a really poisonous idea that I've just put out into the ether, right? The idea, because you want Donald Trump to condemn these white racist people so badly that you would offer him your vote if he says it. Now that you can strike that from the record, Your Honor. Look, this guy, even if he did come out, here's the truth of all of this. Even if this guy did come out and condemn these groups, these racist groups, these hate groups, these white men with shortcomings, and I suspect they have shortcomings, you know he'd be lying. You know that if you asked him and he actually did say, I denounce these racist groups of white violent men, you know he wouldn't be telling the truth. Like I said, he's lied over 23,000 times in the last 3.5+ years. And like I said, this guy has been a racist all his life. Welcome back. So yes, there are 33 voting days left. And if you have not yet voted, please vote and make sure you're voting early, because this is the election. The election's going on right now. It began almost a month ago with the ballots being sent out to North Carolina voters, and it is now in full swing. Over 27 states are voting right now, whether it's by mail or whether it is in person. And since it is October 1st, this is the month where the rest of the country will come online and where you will be voting early in a number of states. Next week, California, among others, comes on board. I will be getting very much into all of these states and early voting. Hope to have a guest on sometime next week to talk about some of this as well. Of course, last week you got to hear from the Arizona Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs. She talked about the voting system in Arizona. I'm really impressed with what she and her team have done out there, and their system is ironclad. This notion that voting is a fraudulent thing is just such garbage. And that's the other contemptible thing about Donald Trump. He hates the country, and in order to keep himself afloat, he will lie like a rug and do anything to destroy the system of voting. This guy is not interested in having you vote, nor is Vladimir Putin. And that's who he's getting a lot of his talking points from. This administration is corrupt and criminal, and they are being led by the Kremlin, not being led by their need and the importance of looking out for the American public. And that's what their oath is to do, is to govern, and govern for the people, not for the powerful, richest 1%, and not for Vladimir Putin or KBS or KSM or whatever his name is in Saudi Arabia. Not for anybody else but the American public. And that is something that Donald Trump doesn't care about. You, the American public. What I would suggest is that you right now check your voter registration. Remember to check your voter registration every week, at least once a week. And now that October is here, I urge you to check it twice a week. I have a voting guide. You know that it's on Twitter if you are a follower of yours truly, at the Popcorn REEL. And I encourage you to visit there and look at the pinned tweet that has the voting guide on it with all the links to the voting registration deadlines, links to check your voter registration, links to register to vote, and so much more. Plus, you can also go to iwillvote.com, iwillvote.com. There's also lots of information there. That's the one website that I think is very good. But the reason why I stress my own voter guide is because it has links to the actual voting websites. the actual places where the election is being handled in every state in the country and Washington, D.C. So these are all official. These are not secondhand. So my links go straight to official websites run by these states. So that's why this is important. Make sure that you are registered to vote. There are voter registration deadlines coming up in the next few days. So it is doubly important that you do pay attention to everything. I'm going to do this in reverse order right now, by the way. Voter registration in Wyoming is not until the 19th of October. And in Wisconsin, it's the 14th of this month. In West Virginia, it's October the 13th. In Washington State, it is October the 26th. In Virginia, it's October the 13th. And in Vermont, there is not really a registration deadline at all. There is no voter registration at all in, I guess, North Dakota. So that's another thing. But there's no real deadline in Vermont, but there's no registering to vote. There's no registration to vote in North Dakota. But in Vermont, there is registration to vote. There just isn't a deadline for it because you can actually register on the day of, in person. So that's something to keep an eye on. In Utah, voter registration deadline, the 23rd of October. And it must be received by the 23rd if you're doing it, sitting in the application. So it's October 23rd. You've got to get it in by then. Now, the voter registration deadline in Texas is coming up real soon, October 5th. That is next Monday, which is coincidentally the first day of early voting in California. But Texas has its voter registration deadline on the 5th of October. That's the last day. If you are in Texas right now or know someone in Texas, please make sure you and they have registered to vote and that you do so right now. Because what happens is that the weekend comes and it's almost here and you say, well, I'll do it over the weekend. Then you forget, of course, and then Monday comes and you may have completely forgotten about it unless someone brings it up. Or, depending on your state of mind, depending on what you're dealing with in your own home or amongst your family or whatever it might be, you might forget. And boom, you wake up on Tuesday, darn it. The deadline to register has passed in Texas. Damn. Do not be that person. Do not be the person who is waking up the next day realizing that they didn't register to vote, because that is not a good feeling. I can tell you that is not a good feeling. So I'm just saying that because it's really important that you register to vote, because I can tell you to vote early, but you cannot vote early unless you are registered to vote. I mean, that's the obvious thing, right? But that is important to stress and emphasize that you must register to vote. And in Tennessee, the voter registration deadline is a day before that. So in Texas is October 5th. In Tennessee is October 4th. That's a Sunday. Unusual to have the deadline be on the weekend, but, you know, there's reasons for that. And I really would love to talk to someone, by the way, in Texas about some of the news I'm hearing about this single ballot thing, that you can't do a single ticket vote anymore. That's now been appealed, and the appeals court said, you're correct, Trump campaign. They can't vote single ticket. And that's not good, because that serves to either discourage or voter suppress people in communities that are likely to be black or brown or native. And I want to get to talk to someone. I have a couple of people I'm reaching out to talk about this sometime next week, because it's not good for the state of Texas or anywhere when you have that happening. But that's for next week. But Tennessee's deadline is October 4th. Registration deadline. South Carolina's October 19th. And I'll be repeating these again. I'll also put these in the liner notes At least the deadlines that are coming up. I won't put every single state, but I'll put the deadlines that are coming up in the liner notes. And also, the link to the voting guide that I've put together is in the liner notes of every episode. So you can look for that, or you can go to my Twitter page at the Popcorn REEL and make sure that you look at the pinned tweet. The tweet that is pinned to the top of the Twitter page that I have at the Popcorn REEL. So I appreciate that. Thank you if you do that, and please register to vote. South Carolina's deadline to register to vote in person is October the 2nd. To vote online, registering to vote in South Carolina via online, whether it's fax, online fax or email, or just, on the website, October 4th. The deadline in South Carolina to vote by mail registration, register to vote by mail, postmarked by October the 5th. So those are the deadlines in South Carolina. In Rhode Island, the voter registration deadline is October the 4th. In Pennsylvania, that's October the 19th. Deadline in Oregon is October the 13th, or October the 9th for Oklahoma. In Ohio, it's October the 5th. So that's a big one for those of you in a very key state. Ohio, October the 5th is your voter registration deadline. In North Dakota, as I told you, there is no voter registration deadline because there's no voter registration in North Dakota. In North Carolina, however, there is voter registration, and there's a voter registration deadline of October 9th. In New York City and in New York State, New York State is October the 9th. October the 9th. Make sure that you are aware of that, New York. You're a big state too. Not necessarily a key state, although, these comments from Donald Trump lately about, well, we're going to make a play for New York. I mean, this guy is a criminal. If you see New York State go Republican on election night or a few days after it, know that there's chicanery going on. Because New York State has not traditionally voted for a Republican candidate for president in a while. So we shall see. And we will keep our eyes on every single one of these states all over the country. And we will be keeping our eye on them for days because we won't know this result. And I don't think the corporate news media, by the way, is doing, and I've said this before, a good enough job about this. We need to be informed that this election will not be called on November 4th. And what the news media should be doing, the corporate news media should be saying that anybody calling an election, be they a candidate or otherwise, is completely wrong. Because Donald Trump is going to say that he won. And he's going to say it on November 3rd. These people are laying out their strategy of lies right in front of your face. So you can see what they're doing. They're very transparent about that. Maybe not with their taxes, like, Donald Trump is not transparent with those. But he is very transparent with his criminality. And he puts it in your face like that's some kind of, sexy thing. He's committing a crime in front of me. Well, again, I say this and mock it, but there is a level of seriousness to what I'm saying because there are people in the world who do like this kind of thing. They love the boldness of it, the audacity. That's a turn on for some people, by the way. Not me. Maybe not you, or maybe you. I don't know. But there is a segment of the population that gets off on, wow, he's breaking all the rules. There are people like that. And they find that stuff sexy. It's something that turns, they get turned on by this. I mean, again, it's probably not a whole lot of people. It's probably, it's a small subset of people who like that kind of thing, who do things out in the open. They're exhibitionists, right? It's like the same thing with sex. People who love to have sex in public and do that so that everybody can hear them because they love the thrill of being caught, or the thrill of knowing somebody, sees them or hears them or whatever. I mean, there are these things in us as human beings, right? That there are these receptors. Some people have those receptors, that they like that kind of thing. And then there are other people who are like, nah, come on. Human beings are human beings. And some of the things that people like are not things that maybe you like or maybe I like. And some of the things that I like or you like may not be the things that other people like. I mean, that's what makes us different and individual and unique and all the other things. But this whole idea of making a play for a state and being so transparently blatant about it it tells you that he's trying to steal New York, is what he's saying. It's his mob boss code of speech. All of that said, New York, again, your registration deadline to vote, registration deadline is October 9th. So voter registration's got to be done by October 9th, postmarked or in person. I have all this information I'm reading to you from. I'm reading actually from my list. New Mexico, your voter registration deadline is coming up on October the 6th. That's really, really soon. That's next Tuesday. So make sure that you are aware of that and register to vote right now. In New Jersey, that deadline is October 13th. In New Hampshire, it varies. You have to consult your local town clerk or county clerk. So, that's something that you can check out online on my page that I've talked about. And then you can call your clerk and get that information, because apparently it varies based on which town you're living in and county you're living in New Hampshire, which is interesting to me. I'll need to actually I need to go and get some info on New Hampshire. And I will, if I'm able to get it as I'm recording this or soon thereafter, I will attach it as an addendum and I will update, because the latest information I know is that it's a deadline that varies according to your clerk, your county clerk. But I will be back to you on that very shortly, in the near future. Whether it's a note in the liner notes of this episode or an audio note at the end of the episode. Nevada, voter registration deadline by mail, or it must be postmarked on October 6th. In person, October 6th is the deadline, and online it's the 29th. Please do not wait till October 29th. Please. You do this online on October 29th, there's going to be a million other people trying to do it too. Why? Because you all wait until the last minute. And I really recommend that you don't wait till the last minute. Now in Nebraska, October the 16th is the voter registration deadline. In Montana, the voter registration deadline is October 26th. The voter registration deadline in Missouri is October the 7th. That is next Wednesday, the day of the vice presidential debate, which I am confident is going to be much more relaxed and civil than what we saw a couple of nights ago. I mean, I will have even money on it. Even money favorite, that debate is going to be much more civilized and subdued. You will not have any kind of constant interruption going on there. I think that you can call Mike Pence a lot of things, and I do. But one thing you won't call him, or at least one thing I won't call him, is rude. Because even when he gave the convention speech that he gave, he was never rude. He is a stone cold liar, and his brand of Christian conservatism is way, way, way beyond the pale. I mean, this guy is a radical fundamentalist. I mean, the stuff that he did as governor of the state of Indiana, go look that up. I mean, it was really Handmaid's Tale stuff, and then some. I mean, this guy was not liked in Indiana because he wore out his welcome, and it was Donald Trump who literally rescued him from the political scrap heap. You know, you hear this garbage all the time about, well, Obama rescued Joe Biden from the scrap. That's what Donald Trump says about Joe Biden. Oh, he was rescued from the scrap heap by Obama. Not true. Not true, of course. He was still having a career in the Senate. I mean, come on now. That's just ridiculous. And it's a lie. But I tell you what, Mike Pence being rescued, in quotes, by Donald Trump, or more precisely, the RNC, is a true story. Because he was on his way out. Mike Pence used to be a radio host, talk radio host, by the way. Let me get to the rest of this. Voter registration deadlines. Mississippi is October 5th. That's next Monday. That's the deadline in person or postmarked by mail. So that postmark must be October 5th. But if you're doing it in person, please be there in person before October 5th. You can register to vote right now in person in Mississippi, right through October 5th, in person. Now in Minnesota, deadline to register there, October 13th. In Michigan, the deadline's October 19th. In Massachusetts, the deadline's October 24th. In Maryland, that's October 13th for your voter registration deadline. In Maine, the voter registration deadline is October the 13th for vote by mail. Online registration deadline, well, none specifically. Again, I may have to get back on Maine because that's the latest information I have, and I update these things pretty darn regularly every day. And then for Louisiana, the voter registration deadline is next Monday as well. That's October 5th. Voter registration deadline in Kentucky, same, October 5th. Voter registration deadline in Kansas, October 24th. Voter registration deadline in Iowa, October 24th. Voter registration deadline in Indiana, that's Mike Pence's state. That is the 2 days before he has his debate. October 5th is the deadline there. That's Monday. Illinois' deadline, October the 18th. Idaho's deadline is October the 9th. That's coming up soon. October the 5th is Hawaii's deadline. That's coming up on Monday, very, very soon. Georgia, the same, October 5th. Very important, Georgia. You get involved. It's the Georgia politics. And of course, last week I had Jim Galloway on with me to talk about Georgia politics, particularly the 2 U.S. Senate races going on in Georgia. Wow, like nothing you've ever seen. And so I'm going to have him on again, I guess, in the next, we're going to be reaching out to him again soon so that we can talk about voting, because voting is going on in Georgia right now. But there's a lot going on in Atlanta and elsewhere in the state of Georgia that we need to really talk about. So we'll have Jim Galloway in the very near future of course, he's of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution to talk about voting. That's the plan, to have him on again really soon and get his take about the state of Georgia and voting in the state, and particularly what we've seen lately down there. So we will see about that shortly. In Florida, the voter registration deadline, October 10th. In D.C., October 13th is your voter registration deadline. In Delaware, that's October 10th. Connecticut, October 27th. In Colorado, October 26th. In California, October the 19th. In Arkansas, the voter registration deadline, October 4th. Wow, that's coming up really soon, folks. That's coming up this coming Sunday. Just like Tennessee's is Sunday. These 2 southern states on a Sunday. You have to get out there and register to vote. In fact, I would do that right now. I've got links where you can register to vote for all of these states that I'm reading out, every single one of them, all 50 plus DC. So you can vote. Check your voter registration on this list of voting guide that I put together. So I'm almost done with the registrations. October the 7th in Arizona. It's October the 5th in Arizona. That's coming up on Monday. So Arizona deadline, and in fact, we just talked about that with the Arizona Secretary of State. Once again, Katie Hobbs spoke about this. The voter registration deadline is October the 5th. Now, the voter registration deadline in Alaska is October the 5th, October the 4th. Oh my gosh. There's so many states. I'm chewing up these deadlines. October 4th, Alaska. My goodness, there's so many of these states. We're almost done though here. Alabama, October 19th. Whew. I will get back to you with Maine and New Hampshire on what the exact dates are, because in New Hampshire, it's county dependent, which I think is interesting. But that's what I have. That's the information I'm getting directly from their website. All of this information I've read to you comes directly from the official websites of the Secretary of State or Commonwealth or the Voting Commission in these states. So there you have it. And I update these things daily.
And Trump has done so repeatedly. So bottom line, no evidence of fraud in the 12th district primary. And I need to add, Wolf, that literally almost every single thing President Trump said tonight, almost every single example he cited about mail voting was wrong. So he cited a case in which he said a West Virginia mailman was selling ballots. There was no mailman selling ballots. That man was caught altering primary ballot applications, he said as a joke, from Democrat to Republican. He told a story about what happened in one county in North Carolina, but got it wrong. He told the story about something that allegedly happened in Philly today or this week, but he got that wrong. You can look up the local media coverage. He told a story about ballots found discarded in Pennsylvania, but got the number of Trump ballots there wrong. So literally everything the president says on this subject needs to be treated with great skepticism, Wolf.
Excellent work, Daniel. You're going to be back in about 15 minutes with more fact-checking.
Welcome back. That was Daniel Dale again with another fact check of the lies that Donald Trump told on Tuesday night during the first presidential debate. Now the issues, and a few days or weeks ago, I started to talk about the issues. We obviously know that there are two clear choices you have to choose from. And there really is no room for third-party debate, or third-party votes, or staying at home or writing in somebody. I think people who do that are either without any kind of, well, I'll put it like this. People who do that to me are very privileged people. People who are privileged. People who know that regardless of who wins this election, they will not be severely or adversely affected in any really great degree. So they will tend, I think, to be a bit richer, a bit wealthier, and white for the most part. There might, that's my outlook on that. But there is a clear choice. There's really two candidates. The one that's polluting the White House and Joe Biden. And the issue that I want to talk about today is taxes. In this episode, I think last time I talked about healthcare, and I'll go back to that because there's no healthcare plan that Donald Trump has, and this thing that he signed last week in the executive order is a complete joke. It's a sham and it's a show, just like everything else that Donald Trump does. It's a complete show with zero to go behind it. But here's the tax plan. Donald Trump's tax plan is to do more of the same. It's just cut taxes for the rich. He lies and says he's going to cut your taxes. Your taxes are going to be cut. It's not true. He is not cutting taxes for everybody. He's cutting them for the rich and for the billionaire class. As a matter of fact, that's what he's done at least 4 different times during these 3 years, and he plans to do another one. Common Dreams came out with this article back in August of this year. And it's called, As Trump Pushes New Tax Cuts for Wealthy, analysis shows U.S. billionaires were $800 billion richer since the pandemic hit. This is just wretched. $800 billion richer. And yes, we complain about Donald Trump not paying taxes of any real consequence. But this is something we should also be making some big noise about. Billionaires in America are $800 billion richer since the pandemic hit. This article was written by Jake Johnson at commondreams.org. And it was published on on August the 26th, 2020. That's, just over a month ago now. And this is what's going on. For billionaires, this is a heads we win, tails you lose economy. Yeah, the economy is working very well. When Donald Trump says the economy is working well, he means for billionaires. I'm going to just read a portion of this. As Donald Trump and top members of his admin continue their push to deliver another round of tax cuts to rich investors, an analysis published Tuesday by the Institute for Policy Studies and Americans for Tax Fairness showed that U.S. billionaires have seen their collective wealth soar by nearly $800 billion, with a B, dollars, since COVID-19 began spreading rapidly across the country in March. The new research found that between March 18th and August 20th, a 5-month period in which the economy tanked and tens of millions of people across the U.S. lost their jobs, the combined wealth of America's more than 600 billionaires jumped by $792 billion, with a B, dollars, bringing their collective net worth to a staggering $3.7 trillion. When Donald Trump says that the economy is going well, he is talking about billionaires. It's going well for the richest people in the country. And those are the people who are going to be voting for Donald Trump, along with the death cult. There's 2 cults under Donald Trump. The rich and greed cult, the greed cult, and the death cult. Those are the 2 cults. Here's what Frank Clementi from Americans for Tax Fairness said. Quote, by demanding even more tax cuts for the rich at this crucial moment, Trump shows he is as out of touch with our nation's needs as America's billionaires are disconnected from our nation's misery, end quote. I mean, this is where the media, the corporate news media, really isn't doing enough stories. CNN has done 1 or 2. I've seen them. But generally speaking, the corporate news media is not talking about this. They are spending more time talking about Donald Trump not denouncing and condemning white racists, and violent ones at that, than they are talking about the real truth of this country, which is the billionaire class is making off and making out like bandits. One of the reasons why the corporate news media is not going to talk about that is because billionaires own the corporate news media. So you're not going to get any kind of scrutiny, any real in-depth scrutiny, as this article in Common Dreams goes, and I'll link to this so you'll see it in the liner notes of this episode. You're not going to see this kind of scrutiny. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And you can have, it's all right to have CNN correspondents like Christine Rampell, or Catherine Rampell, excuse me, saying things about, the billionaires, it's not just because the billionaires are making out well, it's because of this. Come on, folks. This is a system that is created by the billionaire, designed for the billionaire, designed for the very wealthy. I mean, this is a complete lie. This is a complete lie that there's going to be tax cuts for the middle class. Donald Trump is not cutting taxes for the middle class. He's cutting taxes for the billionaire class. I mean, that's just a fact. Jeff Bezos, who Donald Trump publicly rails against, and who is dubbed the richest man in the world, and in fact he is, at least at this moment, had seen his wealth, according to this Common Dreams article by Jake Johnson, has seen his wealth, Bezos, grow by $81.9 billion since mid-March of 2020. That is less than 7 months ago. Now, this article was published in August. So really, let's take it back a bit. So in a matter of 5 months, 5 months, Bezos' wealth grew by about $82 billion. A bigger jump than any other U.S. billionaire. I mean, if that doesn't make you sicker than you were on Tuesday night to watch that Donald Trump shouting contest or Donald Trump shout fest, then my God, what will? This is, I mean, my God. I mean, people need to know this stuff. And I know that people in this country do not like when people rail against the rich because everybody, it is said, is aspiring to be rich, right? If you look at the whole society, every piece of advertising tells you, right? Keep up with the Joneses. The rags to riches story. We have been socialized to aspire to be rich. Nothing wrong with having money, but what kind of character do you have? What kind of person are you? We're not socialized to be rich as people, rich in heart. We're socialized to be rich as in the amount of money we've got, the money that we have. What do you do for a living? Where do you live? You know, we're always trying as Americans to find out how rich other people are around us, right? We're always, I mean, a comedian can do a sketch on this. So there is material to be had. You know, we are, right? This is the typical American thing. Not every single American on the planet does this, but a lot of us do. If you are an American, right? And you will find yourself in the first 3 questions to a complete stranger asking them either where they live or what do you do for a living. That will be in your first 3 or 4 questions to somebody that you do not know. You, I guarantee, will not asking, or the average person will not be asking, what makes you happy? What do you do that makes you happy? What gives you joy? What are your hobbies? I guarantee you that you will not have asked somebody that in the first 3 questions within meeting them. I know I haven't. I haven't asked that question for a long time. I mean, I have asked it, but not very often. But what I will also not do is ask somebody where they live. I will ask them what state they live in, which of the states they live in, or which part of the world they live in. But I'm not going to ask them what neighborhood. People ask that, right? If you tell someone you live in San Francisco, the next question, and this is true of any American city, where do you live? And that question is especially asked of black people or brown people or native people. That question is not typically asked of white people. As if I ask a white person where they live, I will ask them where you live, and then I will not proceed any further unless you volunteer that information to me. But I can tell you that any black person or brown person can tell you that when they have said, well, I live in this part of town, or excuse me, I live in this city, the response from people, and usually white people, will be then to ask, where in LA do you live? Well, LA is sprawling, so I can get that. But in San Francisco, where in San Francisco? Because I think they want to know, not just want to know where you live, but they want to know, wow, is this person rich? Can they afford this? Can they not? I mean, that is a really bad thing about us here, right? That is something that we do. And whether we intend it or not, we do it, right? Because, oh, well, he lives here or she lives there. That means she can afford that, or it means that she can't, or whatever. It's really insidious. We might be the only country that does this. Maybe there are other countries that do this as well. But it's a way of trying to pin down somebody's economic status, right? And it's crude, but we do it. I mean, it's very sad, actually. Anyway, I kind of digress. But that whole thing about Donald Trump, he wants to cut your taxes, garbage. He wants to cut the rich and their taxes, cut the rich's taxes. He wants to cut billionaire taxes, the wealthy taxes. He wants capital gains to go down to around 15% from the 18 or 20% that it is now. Donald Trump wants to cut billionaire taxes. And they hardly pay anything as it is. Jeff Bezos got a tax return refund from the federal government of something like $159 million last year. These guys don't pay. Amazon didn't pay any tax last. Bezos didn't pay any tax. Amazon didn't pay tax last year. They didn't. And, this is the thing. We can go after Trump, of course, because he's in the White House. But again, we need to look at the whole forest of billionaires not paying a darn thing. By the way, Donald Trump's not a billionaire. And I'd never want to hear anyone tell me again, I've said this before, that let's have a businessman run the country. Wouldn't it be great? I don't think so. Welcome back. All of this is to say that Joe Biden's tax plan is pretty darn simple. Tax the wealthy. Tax the wealthy. He will be increasing their taxes. Anybody who is making more than $400,000 a year will be seeing an increase in their taxes. And he always says this on the campaign trail. I am not looking to punish anybody. I just think it is time that the wealthiest in America and the wealthy in America and in corporate America pay their fair share. And that is what Joe Biden says he's going to do. Anybody who is making more than $400,000 a year is going to see an increase in their taxes. And that is the way it should be, especially as we are going through a pandemic. There have been mass layoffs. Disney laid off a whole load of people the other day. There have been furloughs, all these stores furloughing people or getting rid of people, just laying everybody off. Agencies doing it. States are broke from this pandemic. Unemployment claims still hovering around 900,000, 800 to 900,000 a week. Brand new claims. I believe it was 837,000, the figure released today. Filed these claims the week after week. 837,000 odd people filed first-time claims for unemployment. And we are in a depression. This economy is in a depression. And I'm telling you, the last thing to be doing is giving billionaires more tax cuts. Joe Biden, if you are making less than $400,000 a year, Joe Biden will not raise your taxes. You're not going to see any increase in tax. None. That's what his tax plan says. It is the height of incompetence, or I should say the height of destruction, since Donald Trump is a destroyer, not an incompetent. It is the height of destruction and madness to give billionaires more tax cuts. It's just madness. Trump's 2017 tax cuts help super rich pay lower rates than the bottom half of the country. This is from Newsweek. According to economists, and this was an article from October the 19th, 2019, the 400 wealthiest families in America, all of them with net worth in the billions of dollars, paying a lower tax rate than the bottom 50% of households. I mean, Joe Biden needs to be really hitting this. And you're going to find those people on the corporate news media who they will stick a microphone in front of and go, yeah, well, that makes him really smart. He evaded taxes. Tax evasion is a crime. Tax avoidance is not. Certainly not punished the same way. If it ever were a crime, tax avoidance is a passive thing. You're just avoiding paying taxes. Still is a problem, of course, but tax evasion is a crime. And that can get you put in prison. Tax evasion is when you purposefully manipulate and misrepresent and lie on your taxes. And say that, well, this is what happened, da 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 da. And that's what leads to these audits. And that's a real problem. And tax evasion that's what Wesley Snipes got sent to jail for. Not paying his taxes. Or obfuscating them. That's evasion. Avoidance is when you're trying to avoid, filing a tax return or something. Now, that may not be the cleanest definition, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But let me tell you something. Joe Biden needs to be hitting him on this. And I think he is. Scranton versus Park Avenue is really that message. And it's an easy, digestible, memorable message, right? It's 4 words. Scranton versus Park Avenue. And it's a way to rally the white working class. Which, again, I think is a good thing. But let's not invest all our eggs in the basket of the white working class. This is something that I've said before here. I think it's good that he's doing what he's doing, and it shows that the Biden campaign is smart about this. But we need to have similar messaging, or messaging for the Latinx community. We need to have that for the youth. We need to have that for black men. And we need to have those individuals of those groups get involved in the campaign or be part of the strategy circle if there isn't anyone there already, to get this messaging out there, because we now have 33 more voting days until the election, until the end of the election, I should say. And don't forget to get your census in. Yesterday, Wilbur Ross, or the day before, pushed this deadline forward to October 5th. So that means this coming Monday is the deadline to fill in your census. So please do so. I mean, you won't be counted. You will not be heard from. Your community will not get the monies that it needs. Speaking of state monies, if you don't turn this census in, it helps you to do that. It helps your community as well. But these articles, this one, Trump's 2017 tax cuts help the super rich pay lower rate than the bottom 50%, according to economists. It's hideous. It's hideous. That's from 2017, but the article is 2019. But this is so bad. And all these people lying to you. Oh, he's cutting taxes of the middle class. No, he's not. He's never cut middle class taxes. Again, I'm going to go to... This is crazy. January 29th of this year, Forbes magazine. Trump's wasteful tax cuts lead to continued trillion-dollar deficits in the expanding economy. This guy is... Let me tell you something. He's only looking out for his rich buddies. He's not looking out for you unless you're a rich buddy of his. I'm going to link to that article as well. I mean, this is just, it's right there. It's just a click away from online search. It's an online click. This guy does not care about you. He really doesn't care about you. Joe Biden, at least, does care about you. He does care about the everyday person. He really does. I think he does. And his tax plan certainly shows it.
This is our chance to put the darkness of the past 4 years behind us, to end the anger, the insults, the division, and start fresh in America.
I don't pledge allegiance to red states of America or blue states of America. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. I'm going to fight as hard for those who supported me as those who did not support me. We have a chance to put anger and division that overtaken this country behind us. And we can. We've done it so many times in our history. We've begun anew. We can get control of this virus. We can reward work. We can make healthcare affordable. We can be a safe and just nation. We can deal with the existential threat of climate change. We can be what we are at our best. One nation, one people, one America. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
That was an ad from Joe Biden's campaign, the Biden-Harris campaign. And I think it really is time that we rally around what we can do together as people in this country. I do think that these times call for a unifying aspect. And it is something born out of love and respect. And as the Most Reverend Michael Curry, he's the one, of course, who officiated the wedding 2 years ago of Meghan and Harry, has said, I mean, we have to start loving others as we do ourselves. We have to start voting, and these are my words now, we have to start voting, not just for ourselves, but also for others, for everyone. Because we have to vote for the country that we want. Not just the country we want for ourselves, but the country we want for everybody. The country we want that people who come from other countries would love to come to and live in. There's too much selfishness. There's too much selfishness. People wanting to vote just because their 401k is doing well. Oh, well, because I'm doing well, that's it. I'm going to vote for this person. We need to shift that paradigm. We need to shift that. And we need to have an attitude of voting for ourselves and for the good of the country, for the general welfare and the well-being and the health of the country itself. And there is nothing healthy about 209,000 people dead while people are walking around here without masks on. There's nothing healthy about that. There's nothing healthy about 209,000 people dead while people are walking around with no mask on. There just isn't anything healthy about that. There's nothing healthy about billionaires making out like bandits to the tune of $82 billion, like Jeff Bezos. While you've got people sleeping on the streets of San Francisco, sleeping on the streets in your city or town. More of you have seen this. People living without any kind of roof over their head. While you've got Jeff Bezos and others making money off during a pandemic. I mean, Jeff Bezos made billions selling stock while people were dying. During this pandemic, Kelly Loeffler, the current senator in Georgia, I don't think she's going to be there for much longer. The current senator, the Republican there in the U.S. Senate, who is the richest person in both houses of Congress. She made out like a bandit. Part of an insider trading investigation that has not gone anywhere with respect to her, I think. David Perdue, the other Republican senator, who is trying to hold on to his seat, has been making out like a bandit in the same thing, insider trading scandals, dogging him. Because he apparently, allegedly, he may have been part of that. I don't know if he was, but, there's investigations going on. Richard Burr had to resign from his position as chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. I think he had to resign from the committee outright because the FBI had investigated him, or still are, in the insider trading. I mean, these senators were all briefed during this time, and these House members were. And there are people making money off of people dying. And this went through, the Republicans predominantly. Maybe there was a Democrat or two as well. I know that Dianne Feinstein's husband, but that was something unrelated to the particular thing that was going on with these Republicans. This is just evil stuff. We need to invest in the health and wealth of the country, not just in our own health and wealth. That's obvious. I am not saying that when you vote, you are not going to vote with yourself in mind. But you also should be voting with the country in mind. What country do you want this to be? You've seen what's happened here over the last 4 years. You've seen this country become more violent. You've seen this country become even more racist and even more hateful. You've seen these white men carrying out all these violent acts, committing murders, and claiming in the name of Donald Trump that they're doing it. You saw what happened in Christchurch, New Zealand. This guy in the White House now cannot stay beyond January 20th. And as Joe Biden said the other night, if we have the votes, meaning Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, this guy will go. Donald Trump will leave. All these media scare stories, what if he doesn't leave? He's gonna go. Please stop allowing the media and Donald Trump to get you scared. I'm not saying there's no reason to be concerned. I'm not saying there's no reason to be concerned about any of this stuff, given what we've seen from this guy and given what you heard the other night. But what I am saying is that there are mechanisms in place that we have to keep supporting, and that's the institution of voting. That's one that I will contribute to by voting, by supporting it, by voting. That's how you support it. You don't support voting by staying home. And quite frankly, voting by write-in is just a waste of time. You really do have two choices here, folks. One of them is to continue down the decline and the sense of weakness that we have here now. We have tremendous weakness in this country now. This country is weak because we have a weak person in the White House who is destroying the land, destroying the country, polluting it in many ways. Or we can go in a direction that suggests that we are going to be a nation of everybody, not just a nation of some violent white men and hostile white women called Karens. Can we get back to a country that is half decent and loving? We need to get back there. And a country where we have to, we need to get justice too, by the way. Come on. And I think we have a better chance pushing a Joe Biden to that end than we do a Donald Trump, who after another 4 years, I tell you, if he were ever to win this election by stealing it or otherwise, or winning it fair and square, which I don't think he's going to, he's not going to win this thing at all. I think Joe Biden's going to win this thing. But we have to vote and vote early to make that happen. But if Donald Trump were ever to get back in the White House, he would not leave. And this country would end up being a lot worse. He will bear his fangs. This guy will be full-blown authoritarian dictator. He will be a Mussolini, for sure, and a Hitler, for sure. The choice is yours, everybody. You've seen what happened on that debate stage. You've seen what's happened in this campaign. You know that this guy lies like a rug. And you know the other guy has a sense of empathy and decency. This country needs a hug right now. And some people might debate whether or not they want Joe Biden to give him that hug. But I can tell you this. Metaphorically, he will. And metaphorically, I have found that he has a bit more empathy in him. A lot more empathy in him than Donald Trump does. I think I can say that safely. I know I can. Because it's the truth. Vote early. And as I say, make sure you check your voter registration. And make sure you tell everybody, your friends, to do the same. Vote vote early, vote Biden. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.